and welcome to True Nature's video podcast. My name is Nish Masters, and over this series of interviews, I'm going to be chatting to adopters who will be sharing their stories with you and to industry professionals on all things relative to living with Romanian and foreign rescue dogs. The True Nature podcast is sponsored and hosted by The Dog's Point of View, where you can find resources and online courses all created specifically for adopters of foreign rescue dogs and for trainers and canine professionals working with foreign rescue dogs. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoy the show. Go. Hello. So welcome to this first in our series of podcasts on True Nature, living with street dogs. And to kick off, we have with us a very dear friend and colleague of mine, Lynn, who is going to have a chat with us about her foreign rescue dogs, Kendi and Fifi. Hi, Lynn.
Good morning.
So let's kick off with Fifi, because I know Fifi arrived first. And let's just start with how did you come to adopt? Fifi's Romanian, isn't she, Lynn?
She is, yes, she's Romanian. And
how did it come about? How did you come to adopt a Romanian dog in the first place?
So it started off when I was in a position to look to spend a little bit more time with a dog. I had 3 dogs of my own at the time, and I'd given up my business to become full-time carer for my father. So I decided that because I had time at home, I would look for a rescue that maybe was a little bit lower energy than the Spaniels and my working Labrador, and that needed some love and care, and would give me something else to focus on at quite a difficult time.
Yeah.
So my friend and a local behaviourist was fostering this little dog, Florence as she was then. And I started following her journey on Facebook and watching and thinking, oh, she looks lovely, and she was quiet. And
this picture of her, is this when she was at the shelter?
This is the first night that she came home with us.
Right. Okay. Cool. That's a little face.
That was where she started the journey of the fact that I have horses. So that's her at the stables with us on the first night that we brought her home. And she came to us just before Christmas on the 16th of December 2012. So she's been with us 9 years this year.
Yeah.
And obviously that long ago, not many people rescued Romanian dogs. I didn't know much about it. I got a very honest assessment of her at that point from Sue that she was in foster with. And very luckily for me, because I was known to them and passed a home check, she was allowed to come to me just before Christmas. She hadn't been advertised for rehoming or anything. And so she joined us on the 16th of December and came to live with myself, my dad, Darren, and the 2 Spaniels and my Labrador.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So it wasn't a kind of a normal, like, standard adoption process. It was more something that kind of came about, if you like.
It was, yes. I mean, it obviously to follow the process of Blind Dog Rescue UK, who had brought her into the country, I had to have a home check.
Yeah.
But, luckily, I was known to Sue, who was fostering her. So fortunately, we passed the home check with flying colours. And that was why she was able to come to us so close to Christmas as well.
Yeah, of course.
Because it was felt that there was no point in her staying in foster, that she was better to come to where was going to be her forever home.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you find it when she came home and you got her home, and obviously you've got resident dogs as well, so that kind of sometimes can add problems, if you like. How did you find things when she arrived with you?
The shock side of it was that I wasn't ready for the level of resource guarding that she brought with her.
Yeah.
Only from the dogs. She didn't guard from any of us at all, but it was particularly extreme.
Yeah. How long had she been in foster before she came to you?
Just under 3 weeks.
Oh, so not long at all.
Not long at all.
She hadn't shown that behavior in foster before?
She had, but it was very well managed.
Right, okay.
Because of Sue's immense knowledge.
Yeah.
And to be very, very careful, it was very well managed. Yeah. And fortunately for me, I managed it very well, just from the point of view of trying to protect my resident dogs. But I just don't think I'd seen anything of that level before.
Extreme, yeah.
So she used to, if the spaniels got like sticky weed in their ears or a bit of grass, she would try and guard their own ears from them.
Oh.
So I've never seen anything like that before. Funny things like a dead fly on the windowsill sent her into a complete frenzy, and I couldn't work out what it was because it was behind the blinds.
Yeah.
And
she was guarding something.
She was guarding something. I knew she was guarding something. I just didn't know what.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I learned very, very quickly what she might potentially guard. So nothing was ever left on the floor. If somebody came in and left a bag on the floor in the hall, like a handbag, anything like that, that just became a massive value to her. And that was particularly in the hallway where the doors were. She would guard doorways from the other dogs and the cats that I had at that point. So very quickly we became a gated community.
I'm sure there's many people listening that can relate to that.
And the more we put in place that she didn't feel she had to guard things, the better she became.
Yeah, of course. What about this? Did she guard this?
She was very concerned that I was going to try and get her to do anything remotely related to training or anything that involved her having to do what I asked her to do.
She says, no, I'm going to get rid of this. I don't want to read in this book.
But I mean, overall, looking back, she was great.
Yeah.
She was very, very friendly with people, loves children.
How old is she?
Was she? Sorry. Her passport says 7, and we've had her 9 years at Christmas. So I suspect she wasn't that old.
No.
But really, I have no idea.
No.
Yeah. So
did the people that you adopted her from, whether it's the fosterer, whether it was Blind Dog Rescue UK, did they kind of give you any information about foreign rescue dogs in terms of, that they can be a bit different, or things to watch out for maybe, or guidelines on settling them in?
No,
I think back then, like you say, it was much less of a thing that people were doing.
Mm-hmm. And I think in fairness, because Fifi was so relaxed with everything, it wouldn't have been as much of a problem. I do feel that if a resource garden hadn't been managed, that could have escalated quite badly.
Yeah.
And resulted in fights amongst the other dogs, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So obviously you have mentioned that you already had the 3 dogs. There she is again, look, bless her. How did she transition, aside from the resource guarding, which obviously you managed? How did she transition with them? Was that fairly smooth?
That was fairly smooth, yeah. My little chocolate spaniel, still to this day, winds her up. But
spaniels do that. It's their thing.
She just wants them to calm down. There's no nastiness in it. She just you can see her almost roll her eyes at him.
Yeah.
Which we all do at times with our little Archie.
Yeah.
My Springer, she's adored from day one. All the girls love Roman, and her big bond was with my Labrador, my female Labrador. And looking back now, having seen how she bonded with Kendi, it was a body language thing.
Yeah,
I think she found because Vicky had a similar body shape, didn't have the ridiculous tail and the floppy ears. They could read each other better.
Yeah.
I might have that totally wrong, but that is my feeling on why Vicky was her friend, was her best friend from the minute she came in.
Yeah.
But luckily that didn't cause my three were very are good with other dogs, genuinely. And it all went, that was pretty smooth.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. And where are we? Love this picture of her. How old is this picture of her now? So I think I remember you sharing this. It's not that long ago, is it?
That's not that long ago at all. It was last summer when she was hunting mice.
A lot of them are mices, aren't they?
Yeah,
a lot of them, or mousers. I don't know the right term there. Tramp is very much a mouser, and I know a lot of the people that I work with and speak to. My first foster dog, Merlin, he was an incredible mouser, and he takes his job very seriously with the family he lives with now. So yeah, I love this picture, and I'm pretty sure I've got a very similar one of Tramp, although it's not quite as clear as this one. So yeah.
No, that is her favourite thing. She loves to dig holes.
Yeah.
But only if it's going to bring her to a mouse or a bowl or anything. I've tried to make her a little digging pit in the garden. No interest at all, because I don't have any live creatures in there. And
it's funny, isn't it? Because Tramp, any kind of stream, or especially just quite shallow streams and like low sitting rivers and stuff, he's in there and he's roaring up and down, having a real good, he just loves to get in and splash about. And I made him a pool in the garden, and he didn't even put one paw in it. If it's not dirty and smelly and mucky,
is exactly
not real. Forget it.
Like, no, forget it. I'm not going in there.
That's artificial. So how have you found training with Fifi? Did that go quite well? Was she quite trainable in terms of, just not, I don't mean obedience training, but just day-to-day life, fitting in with your life and your routine?
Yeah, she was very good. The thing that I found so different with her, again, because that long ago, there wasn't really much information on the street dogs. She's so different, because I have my other three dogs obviously are all rescues, and there was no plan to have working type dogs. It was just the ones that came along.
Yeah.
But they are so easy to motivate, because that's how they're bred. See, they're artificially selected to work with you. So, with them, it was like, oh, I'll just pick up a toy. My emergency sort of get out of dodge was a squeaky ball.
Yeah.
And just all go, okay, ma'am, what's happening? What we're doing? Not like that at all with Fifi.
No.
So trying to find what motivated her and hold her attention when we're out in the environment was a real learning curve.
Yeah.
Huge learning curve. Yeah. But in a good way, because I find it fascinating, because they're a little bit more of challenging.
A little bit more of a challenge. They make us ask more questions of ourselves, don't they? And they make us look deeper and figure out who they are, rather than, when it's easy, it's like, well, I can just do it this way. But when you do have a dog like that, and most of the Romanian dogs are like that, they really do encourage you to look closer and watch closer and listen to what they're telling you, so that you can actually find out who they are and how they process the world and what makes them tick, and actually really get to know them on a deeper level. And I love that about them. That is something that I absolutely love. I find them fascinating.
Yeah, me too. She really, I know people talk about heart dogs. She is my heart dog. I absolutely adore her, and it's mutual. It really is. She loves people, but anything worries her or just anything, and she's there.
Yeah.
She's like, I'll just stick with my mum.
Yeah.
And obviously when she first came to live with us, if I left the house, they all came with me, because the carers were in with Dad. Yeah. So she was never, looking back, I was very lucky we didn't end up with separation issues.
Yeah.
And again, but for the grace of God, that was good with her, and she's never ever worried when I'm not here. She settles quite nicely. Yeah. But if I'm there and she can't get to me, she doesn't like that, which I've never worked on, because I've never needed to.
No.
So it's I'm quite comfortable with the fact that she looks to me for safety.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And these are the most recent pictures we've got of Fifi, aren't they? So how old well, we don't really know how old she is now, do we? It's a bit of a guessing game, as is the case again with a lot of the Romanian dogs. So we probably think maybe 13, 14, do you think? You've had her 9 years.
I would, yeah.
Yeah. Bless her heart.
So she's a little less red, but equally beautiful. And she's obviously losing muscle quite drastically on her back end. We suspect she's been run over and her pelvis is healed without sort of medical attention.
Yeah, sure.
But certainly doesn't slow her down. She still keeps up with everybody. She's still very keen to go on her walks and be involved in everything. Yeah.
So having had her for so long, because obviously a lot of people, the whole Romanian rescue world, if you like, has exploded more in recent years. And having had her for 9 years, like you say, back then it wasn't a big thing, whereas it is much more so now. There won't be many people who have had their dogs for that long. So in terms of any changes you've noticed more as she's gotten older, has there been many changes, or is she kind of stayed fairly smoothed out? It hasn't, you know, increased in anxieties or stress or worries, or has she become more resilient and able to cope and stuff like that? Has there been any changes you've noticed, you know, over the last few years as she starts to get more into being an aged little girl? I don't want to say old. I hate the word old.
Yeah, so do I. Fifi and I are growing old gracefully together.
Absolutely.
No, luckily she, if anything, she gets more relaxed.
Gotten easier.
Yeah, she gets easier. The only thing that has increased is her, she's a lot more vocal.
Okay.
But that came about when Kendi arrived. We had to put in, or I chose to put in much more routine for Kendi's confidence.
Yeah.
And Fifi, because she's Romanian and she's as bright as a button, that very, very quickly. And now she knows what time breakfast should be, what time tea should be, what time we open the back door to go into the garden, because we had big problems with Kendi getting her to go outside to toilet, because she was so fearful. And now Kendi's much more relaxed about the routine. The spaniels are relaxed about the routine. No, Kendi's not.
Fifi says, no, we're sticking. I like this routine. I will stick with this routine. Thank you very much.
Which is kind of increased a little bit of attention seeking or whatever it is that she's doing, which again, it's just, I just laugh about it.
And I think, you know, for me as well, as dogs get older, I think that is something that it's like people, isn't it? You look at old people, they like their routine, they like to do, they've all got their little habits and the stuff that they do. So maybe it's the same for the dogs. They like it the way they like it when they get old, and you know, why not? Indeed.
Yeah, it's fine with me. And I think they all not necessarily took a little bit of a back seat, but they probably did in a way, because Kendi was a different kettle of fish to Fifi.
Of course.
They probably did have to work a little bit harder, or did wonder why everything was taking so long. But why is she getting all the attention and we're waiting while it takes 45 minutes to get out the door? You know, which is wonderful.
Oh, bless them. So let's talk about Kendi, because obviously we've mentioned Kendi, and obviously you decided to adopt another little foreign rescue. She's Bosnian. Is she Bosnian?
Yes,
yeah,
she's
Bosnian. So tell us how Kendi came about. This picture is when she was found, I believe you said, yeah?
Yeah, that would be after she was found, and when she hasn't been in the country very long, I believe. A lot of the photographs came to me after I'd adopted Kendi.
Yeah.
When she came to us, she was 2. So,
so much older. So we have got, there she is again, look, bless her. She's so cute. So how did Kendi come about? How did
well, Kendi was in foster near to a very good friend of mine who doesn't now, but at the time she was running a rescue.
Okay.
So we'd become very good friends. One of the friends that you've never met in person, but we'd
I know the type.
And Kendi was in foster with friends of hers. So I think, looking back, Kendi had kind of been on my radar for about a year when my lovely friend Bev kept sharing her information.
Yeah.
And I kept looking at this little face and thinking, oh, isn't she lovely? But had 4 dogs and we're in the position to really think about wanting another one. But these things happen. So very sadly, in May 2017, we lost Vicky, our beautiful Labrador, and she was my first dog that I very luckily got to call my own, if you can say that you own a dog. But
yeah.
So after we lost her, we still had 4 dogs at that point because we'd rescued the little spaniel, and I was, no, this 4's enough, this is it. But or Vika, as she was then, kept coming up on my newsfeed on Facebook. There she is in foster with her brother Hardy, who is completely blind and was adopted by the 2 ladies that were fostering, Kendi and Hardy.
Yeah.
But Kendi wasn't going to stay there, and she'd been at quite a few places and returned. And my friend Bev is very clever and knows what works, and kept pulling on my heartstrings with this dog that would just pop up, and she would mention it to me, and I would say, yeah, I know, but I really, I don't think I'm ready for another dog. But then the one of the photographs in particular where she's looking straight into the camera, that was a photograph taken to try and find her a home, which is such a sad little face.
It is, isn't it? It is. And obviously, like you say, she used to be called Vika.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a tug on the heartstrings picture, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And I think the more I look at it, the more I realise, because you can see where she's losing coat.
Yeah.
And when she's stressed, she goes dandruffy and loses hair.
Yeah.
But obviously I know that now. I didn't know that then. But she just kept appearing. So
where's the picture?
The one. That is the one that was actually taken by my friend Bev in the back of her car. And it came up on a selection of photographs, and I just looked at that little face and thought, well, obviously I don't go on holiday, I don't leave the dogs, I'm a big softie, and I thought, well, we've already got these dogs that sort of take up all my time, would one more
make much more difference?
And I thought, well, this is, I've got a Romanian dog, I can do this.
Yeah.
So
yes, I hear that often as well.
So I contacted Blind Dog Rescue UK, who Kendi was also in foster with after a failed rehome, and she'd gone back to the ladies that were fostering her originally, and they were happy because I was still known to Sue, who had fostered Fifi.
Yeah.
And we were still in the same home, and I said, I'm quite happy to do another home check if need be.
Yeah.
But they said, no, that's fine. If you would like to adopt Fifi, Kendi, sorry, that's fine. So as she was Vika.
Yeah.
And on the 17th of July 2017, we packed up the 4 dogs, as it was then, into my little van, and we drove a 500-mile round trip to meet Lisa and Chloe, who Kendi was in foster with then.
Yeah.
And we went on a service station, as you do.
As you do.
In a great leap of faith, but I just felt that the only dog I thought I may have a problem with was my Springer Spaniel, because he was quite selective.
Yeah.
But girls that are smaller than him generally aren't an issue. And Fifi, although, makes a big fuss when dogs come near the van in particular. Once she gets to know a dog, she's great.
Yeah.
So we drove down there and brought Mika home with us.
So you mentioned just a bit ago about how she had kind of been adopted and come back quite a few times. Did they tell you, why that had been happening? Did you have some understanding of, potential problems that she was going to possibly arrive with?
Her main issues that we were aware of was fear and reactivity, which obviously is similar things under different names. That she was worried. So when they'd arrived at 4 months old into the country, Hardy and her other brother Rudy, who I keep in touch with his owner on Facebook, those two were quite friendly and come straight out of the crate, wanting to interact with people. Kendi had hid, so right from day one she'd been quite fearful.
Yeah.
So I knew that she was going to be scared of things and may take a little bit of time to get used to what was going on. I didn't know that it was to the point that she would bite if she was scared.
Yeah. And
that leads, harnesses and collars were a real issue for her, a real issue.
Yeah.
So that I wasn't so ready for, because probably I'd been very lucky with Fifi. Yeah. So
lulled you into a false sense of what it was going to be like.
Very, very
tell us a little bit about what Kendi was like when she arrived.
So when she arrived, I mean, she was quite friendly with us. She was great with the other dogs, and she particularly Fifi, it was a real eye opener, because they just looked at each other and Fifi went, "I know what you're saying, you're fine." I wouldn't dream of putting Fifi in the back of the car near any of the other dogs, but Fifi and Kendi, they go in the back of my Land Rover together, sit together, they'll go in a crate together, no issue at all. So that struck me, how well Romanian dogs get Romanian dogs.
Yeah.
Overseas dogs.
Yeah.
And
I've heard that a lot, and I've seen it for myself as well with my own boy when he met my first foster dog, Merlin. Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting.
So that spoke to me very clearly as to why Fifi has a little tolerance for some dogs, because they're just rude in her eyes.
Yeah.
So the first night we came back, and Kendi is used to being in a crate. I popped her in a crate, and I said to Darren, "Leave her in the crate. I'm going to go and see to the horses. I won't be long." So my husband, being as he is, and she was been very friendly, and everything was great. Let her out of the crate, and when I came back, she'd got herself in the corner next to Darren and was petrified. She was growling, and he was just frightened to move.
Well, that will teach him not to do what he's told.
So, in fairness to my baby girl, that wasn't a very good start for her. And I came back and got all the other dogs out of the way and managed to sort of sit with her quietly. And she came over to me and we settled things down. But because I'd put a harness on her, she had a collar on her, but she let me put a harness on her to get her into the van to drive her back. We took her to where I'm very lucky that I have a secure field. We took her there for a little potter around on a long line with the other dogs all together before we brought her back into the house. So at that point, everything was quite relaxed, everything was great, and I stupidly took her harness off. So next morning, as soon as I went to go towards her, that was a big no-no, and she would have bitten. I have no doubt at all, if I'd kept going towards her with a lead, collar, harness, she would have really, defended herself. She was frightened. She was really, really frightened.
Yeah.
And I consider both myself and Darren not lucky, but good that I was aware of the potential. And again, careful management.
Able to accurately read, how she was feeling, and that there was a point where it was not okay for you to go any further.
Yeah, that was like a big no. And I remember she got the top of the landing. We have a long hall along the top of the stairs, and she was just lying in the middle of it, and she was petrified. And I sat halfway down the stairs and thought, right, what have we done? What are we going to do? How am I going to manage this? Because there was no at that point moving her from one place to another.
No.
She was just too scared.
Yeah.
Then the hiding to go to the toilet came about, that she wouldn't go outside because she was frightened of the doorway, which again was fair enough. But she would go and hide in the corner by our downstairs toilet to toilet. Yeah. And if you looked at her, she would shake. She was petrified.
Oh. And
I just sort of accepted that we would try and manage the area of the house, and that I needed to cough anyway. We would just try and make her to a point where she was comfortable to go outside.
Yeah.
And
did you try and make it so that as you obviously you have to move around your house as you go about your day, but did you try and make it so that her space was as limited as possible, that you were going to be kind of moving into it a lot of the time?
Probably not as much as now that I know what I know. I could have made it easier for her and given her more of a safe space, but I'm
guessing again in this scenario you didn't get any kind of advice or from the rescue on how to support her and in terms of setting her up right, being a fearful dog.
No.
Now
that I can sort of look at arranging an environment to support her.
Yeah,
there was some bits that we got. I mean, she always had a crate, and she could go to that. But looking back on it, it was upstairs, so she had to come through the hall and the stairway to get up to that.
Yeah.
So, and it would have been quite difficult, just the way our house is.
Yeah.
That I could have given that a lot more thought. I probably the utility room may have been a better area for her. There's not much room in there, but it could have been somewhere that she could have got to a lot more easily.
Yeah.
Than where I assumed she would go, because we have the dog room is our big bedroom upstairs, and then Fifi has her own bedroom at the back of the house.
Of course she does.
Because she always has the potential, if she finds something that she wants to guard, then it might, if I'm not there to manage her, we might get an issue with my other female dog, with my little spaniel.
Yeah.
So looking back on that, I could have done that a lot better for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of things did you have to, kind of work through with Kendi, shall we say, to get her? I mean, this is a more recent picture, obviously, where she is having just the best time. Look at her now. Well, not quite now. This was, how long ago was this?
That is about 2 years ago, actually. Well, let's see, how long have we had? About 4 years in July, so that's nearly 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was where, again, I'm very, very lucky that I have a secure area that she can go to play.
Yeah.
Without the having to put a collar or harness or anything onto her.
Yeah.
Because I had to go right back to basics to work on just being able to approach her with anything.
Sure.
She was so frightened.
She would just scoot away.
Yeah. And you would sometimes be able to get something onto her, but even now, walking on a lead is very, very frightening for her. Yeah, she gets very worried if anybody approaches her, or she's going one way and you try and change direction.
Yeah, it's that whole restriction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She thinks something's going to hurt her, or you're going to do something.
Yeah. I know you did, you worked through a very lengthy desensitization process with her to the leads and the harnesses and even muzzle training as well, just so that you had that as a backup if ever needed. Because obviously she had that extreme fear. So things like going to the vets and stuff like that, if it comes up in an emergency, it's always obviously good to have that in place. But she does have the collar and the lead on now, doesn't she? She can cope with all that.
Yeah, and I still have to be very careful. Things like a couple of weeks ago, she went right back with having a collar put on.
Okay.
And I thought, what's happened here? And when you go back and now you analyze everything.
Yeah. And what tiny little thing has happened to make this come about?
How has this come about? And I realized it was because we had one of my regular dog walking dogs staying with me just for a couple of weeks, and I'd approached her with her collar in my hand as well as her own collar.
Yep.
And because it's not something that she's used to, I mean, I do this all the time. I pick up 4 collars, and whatever dog comes to me first, they get the collar on to go out. But Gorgeous Scully's, her collar she's a big Labrador, so it was a much bigger collar, and it wasn't something she'd seen before.
Yeah.
And that was
and that is how kind of sensitive they are to the environment, to the things in the environment, to the things that they see. Something that is seemingly so insignificant to us, they pick up on straight away.
Yeah.
It's just, it looks different, it feels different, it sounds different. The more fragile dogs, they're very obviously tuned into those changes and those shifts, aren't they?
Yeah, very much so. And it took me a while to work out what it was. So I just did a little bit of she does a lovely little hand touch, and I just went back to basics with her around her collar and thought. And then I thought, because I went to do it, and I thought, it's a different collar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously I had it in my hand, although it wasn't going to go onto her. That was enough for her to think, oh, I don't know what that is.
This all looks different. Maybe it sounded different as well if you had a couple of things in your hand.
Yeah. It was just enough for her to think, no, what you're going to do to me.
Yeah. So was that, the things that you worked through with Kendi, were they mainly just, focused on around the fearfulness? Were there any other kind of challenges? I know that you mentioned she was reactive.
The fearfulness was initially the main thing, and with that, I just had to stop everything and focus on making her feel safe.
Yeah.
Which
on that,
again, now that I've learned so much more, there are bits that I could have done better. Definitely. I could have put more environmental things in place for her.
What about the speed? Like you say, I know that you've done a lot of learning. You had a huge learning curve over the last 4 years. So in terms of the speed of the process and breaking it down, do you feel like, knowing what you know now, you could have made all the kind of slices of progress a lot smaller for Kendi? Would that have helped her?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have just stopped doing anything.
Yeah.
Just
dialed it all right back, and because a lot of it as well is, when they first come, and we want to help them, obviously we want to help them feel better, we want to help them move forward so that they feel more relaxed in this, the new home, the new environment, and all the what we class as lovely things that they're gonna get to experience now. So we want to move them forward, but sometimes in doing that, we add pressure in. When they first arrive, obviously we're complete strangers. They don't know us, they don't trust us. And being quite independent dogs, I think there's a lot of value in just spending time being with them and letting them get to know you, and you get to know them, and having conversations with them, as opposed to always want to be doing something and moving something forward. Let's just have a conversation. Let's just sit together. What would you like to do? And let her just figure you out. Do you think that would have made a difference if you had done more of that in the very early stages?
Definitely. Yeah, no doubt about it. I think I wrongly thought that because she'd been in the country from being 4 months old and being in sort of a home environment, although it was several different homes,
yeah,
and I realised how detrimental that was to her.
yeah,
That all the things that I now know a lot of the Romanian dogs deal with and how fearful they are, I didn't expect from her.
yeah,
So I probably put undue pressure on her and sort of totally underestimated how hard it was for her to come with new people
yeah,
and to be away from her brother.
yeah,
You know, she'd been with Hardy nearly all of the time, apart from when she'd gone to various other places. She'd always gone back to him.
she's had a very unsettled time, hasn't she? You know, you come in the country, it's a major unsettling experience, and then you get settled in this place almost, and then you go off somewhere else, and then it doesn't work out, and you come back, and you go somewhere else, and you come back, and the more times that happens, the longer it takes them to start to trust, to start to believe that the place they're in is actually going to be the place they stay in. Do you know what I mean? So even any dog like that that's kind of back and forth, it does make it a lot harder and a longer process of developing the relationship and building that trust. And of course, anything for a fearful dog and even a reactive dog, the kind of things that we want to do with them to help them move forward is built on the relationship and the trust. Without the relationship and the trust, you know, these dogs are going to revert to instincts every time. Mm-hmm. So it's I think it's really interesting that you've done kind of all that now, and you can reflect back and see the differences in what you did then. Sorry, I need another cup of tea, clearly. What you did then compared to what you would do now. I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but of course she has made great progress, and you know, I know that she's a different dog, you know, to what she was even when I met you a couple of years ago.
She's amazing. I mean, I never thought, and when I sort of tried to set myself up to what it was going to be, I just wanted her to feel safe. I stopped having any expectations at all. I just wanted her to not be worried, and if that meant that, that going for walks, wearing a collar, wearing a harness wasn't going to be the thing to do, then we wouldn't do that. And I think a lot of the time, because I have the other dogs, I just wanted her to want to come for a walk with them.
Yeah.
And I had to remember that wasn't what I wanted, had nothing to do with what she wanted, and I had to just accept that if that day she didn't want to come out, then we just put her somewhere safe. We fortunately got quite quickly over the moving her around the house, and I got sort of into a safe space, because I didn't want to leave her in a position of having access to the front door and the windows and feeling like she had to defend herself.
Yeah.
So I managed to get her to where I could think she was as safe as she could be, and away from all the noise and the distractions. I mean, we live in a cul-de-sac, which is quite quiet, but we still, a lot of the time, I still keep the blinds closed for her, because she worries about what's going on around the house. Yeah. But if I'd done that a lot more quickly, then, she may not have taken as long to get to where she is.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us a bit about, obviously Fifi was a much more robust dog anyway, but tell us how Kendi is now compared to, obviously this terrified little girl that could hardly cope with anything. Tell us a bit about how she is now, 4 years down the line.
Like a different, I mean, I never ever thought we'd get to where we are now. Just purely from the fact that I can go and touch her and not think, is that too much for you? I still have to be very careful with her, and it's made me very aware with all of the dogs that they let you get away with a lot. You do a lot of things where I've become very, very aware of consent,
Yeah.
and particularly, like the poor spaniels, sometimes when I'm trying to dry them and I nearly like rub the head off, or, and it makes me so much more like, right, okay, that's what I'm doing here. But just to be able to say, you're coming over here, and she'll come for a cuddle, I can stroke her, and she's just a happy little soul. She's still very reactive.
Yeah.
And some people are a definite no for her. But generally speaking, once she's over her initial shock when she sees somebody or a dog, now it's very much, I'm frustrated and I want to talk to you and you will be my friend. And why have you not got any sweets for me?
Bless her heart. So let me just ask you then, because I'm conscious that we could literally sit here and talk about Romanian dogs and foreign dogs for hours, and we don't actually, probably shouldn't. Let me just ask you, if you could turn back the clock, knowing what you know now, is there anything that, obviously we've covered what you would have done differently, is there anything that any advice you would like to give to anyone listening who's thinking of adopting an overseas dog, or who has just adopted, or maybe having some challenges with their foreign dog at the moment?
Advice wise, if you're thinking of adopting a Romanian dog, I would just do a little bit of homework, learn a little bit more about who they are and
how they tick,
and how complicated they are, but also how amazing they are. Absolutely amazing. Just get yourself a little bit of preparation, and get it right from day one. Make sure you get a support network, because when Kendi was at her worst, when I spent many an hour in tears, it was a lonely place.
Again, I know many adopters who will relate to exactly that, for sure.
So
that feeling of overwhelm, that feeling of not knowing what you're doing, and not knowing if what you're doing is right, and not knowing if it's ever going to get any better. You adore the dog, you love the dog, you want to make their life and their world safe and wonderful for them, but you're just really not sure the best way to go about it. I know that that is something that I hear a lot from people when I speak to them. And I think it's good for people to realize that they're not the only ones that feel that way. And obviously you're someone with extensive experience. You've had a lot of dogs. You run a dog walking business. It's not like, and your dogs as well have been, all right, they're not Romanian, all of them, but they've been rescue dogs. You've had your own challenges to deal with, and yet you still felt overwhelmed in this situation with little Kendi and her particular challenges that she brought with her.
And I think that if you're in any doubt at all, just stop. Just, give them space. And if you think you're going too slowly, go even slower.
If anything's, anything, if there's a problem, if something's not working, just slow right down. Just slow down. If I could say that one thing to anyone, just slow everything down. Dial it back.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times I learned that I just needed to go. But if she got that frightened, we had the particular day where I had to cut a lead off her and just leave her in the house with a collar and half a lead.
I remember.
Yeah, it was just leave her alone. You can't make it better. You've just got to give her space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yes, my advice would be just, do some reading, get in touch with people, talk to people that have done it, and get it right from the start.
Yeah, absolutely.
They deserve it. They really, really do.
Yeah, they are amazing characters, and obviously these two were incredibly lucky to find their paws with you all the time, and the patience that you've given them, and obviously you've done, like you say, your own learning. You've been on your own learning curve for them to get it right for them, which is amazing. And it's been absolutely amazing to speak to you as my first guest on the True Nature podcast.
Very happy to be here, and I have to say that Kendi is an unusual name and it means loved one in African.
Oh, wow, I did not know that.
That's why she's called Kendi. That was an idea from a very good friend of mine. So
I'd just like to say actually as well, sorry, I have to say this because I'll forget it. I know I will. But I know that there's been a couple of recently, you've had a couple of shares where you've had some big wins with Kendi. And that's something I do like to kind of make people very aware of, that although some of these dogs can be really challenging and they can feel overwhelming, when the pennies drop or the bricks fall in or to place and the jigsaw starts to come together, it is so rewarding. It is such a much bigger win for, you know, for people like that with the more challenging dogs. And I love that. I love it when we hear the wins, when people have been going through you know, challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's really cool to have those shares. But yeah, I did not know that that was what Kendi meant.
Yes, it's because people assume that was the name that she came with because it's unusual. And I should have said that earlier. That was why we chose that name for her.
Yeah,
because
I love that.
Start. Yeah,
I love that. Well, it's been absolutely amazing to chat with you, Lynn, and I hope that, you know, anybody that listens will find value in your story with your 2 beautiful foreign rescues. And I look forward to catching up with you again soon and hearing more about Kendi's wins, because we know that there'll be more coming for sure.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. It's been awesome speaking to you.
Bye.
Now, bye bye.